Hello, and welcome to another edition of Day Drinking with Kevin. I'm your host, Kevin McGuire. And in today's Perspective series, we talk to Jonas Tofterup, Master of Wine. In fact, the only Danish Master of Wine in the entire world. Currently, Jonas is the owner of the Iberian Wine Academy in Spain and is training the next generation of sommeliers worldwide with the same passion and enthusiasm he used to obtain his Master of Wine. Jonas knew from a very young age that he wanted to be in the wine business. I can't wait to hear what he has to say. So, Jonas, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me this morning. You are a Master of Wine that started 2019. And this Perspective series is really talking about how you led up to that decision to go down that path to achieve the highest level of certification in our industry. So take me back to the beginning, when you first started to fall in love with wine and you said, wow, I want to become an MW. How did that decision process start for you?
Well, I think in terms of wanting to take the MW, that was something that was always very far away from my expectations and my own ambitions. Mm-hmm. But as I kept on studying through the WSETs and after becoming a skilled winemaker, I said, okay, well, I finished the diploma and I said, okay, what am I going to do now? Oh, let's go for the MW. I was living at that time in Valladolid in northern Spain, making wines, and didn't have that much of a social life. So I said, okay, well, I had no kids. So I said, okay, well, maybe now is a good time to study if I ever want to do it. So
Yeah, when did you fall in love with wine? Was there a special moment or a special bottle or that you said, this is why I want to be in this industry?
Well, I think it started when I was probably around 11 years old. Okay. Mm-hmm. I didn't drink wine at the time, I must admit, but I was curious about the smells of it. And my family have always been drinking wine several times a week for the dinner, and they would give me their glass and let me smell their glasses. Mm-hmm. And there was a summer then of 97. I went to Denmark with my parents. We were living in Spain at that time. And my brother was living in Denmark, but he was studying to become a skilled winemaker in Denmark, believe it or not. But they well, not skilled winemaker, but it's more cellar master. That would be the word, because they import a lot of bulk wine, but bottle it and prepare it in Denmark. Mm-hmm. So instead of going with my parents to visit winery families or friends, which I thought was kind of boring, I was just a boy of no more than 11. Mm-hmm. So my brother said, well, why don't you come with me to work? Yeah, I'd love that. So I actually got permission to go with him to work, and I saw the big tanks and the pumps and particularly the bottling line. Mm-hmm. And my brother there inspired me, hey, try this, smell this. And I just thought it was fascinating. And I thought, well, I want to be a winemaker. I want to make wine with my brother one day. So actually after that, I went back again to Spain, started school. That was probably year 8. I went to English school. And then my teacher, just after starting the school year, she said, okay, well, all of you need to write an essay on what you'll be doing when you're 25 years old. I wrote proudly, I will be making wine with my brother. And actually, as a coincidence, I was doing this filming with my brother recently. I still have the essay here.
Wow.
And that's you see, it's summer of 97. It says up there. And down here, I wrote, we're making the brother's wine, the end, as a good school kid would do.
Wow. So I have 4 kids, Jonas, and I can imagine I would have been called into the principal's office and had one of my kids at that age brought an essay in that said that they wanted to be a winemaker when they grew up. But fantastic, from such a young age, you knew that this is what you wanted to do, and you studied it, and you got a degree in this. When did you start the WSET program?
So I studied that before studying wine viticulture and enology. So that's in 2010. Okay. I jumped straight onto WSET level 3.
Okay.
I skipped two. I think I should have taken the two at the time, but the guy who offered, we said, well, I think you can jump it. And I said, okay, well, then I'll skip it and jump direct to level 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, in 2010, the same year, I then moved to France, where I studied viticulture and enology for a year. And by the end of that year, I got a scholarship from Denmark. There's a lot of scholarships you can apply for being a student. And I told my girlfriend, if I get that scholarship, which was around, I think, £2,000 more or less, then I'll start studying the WSET diploma. So I got it, and I said, okay, I'm gonna study it. So in parallel, while I was studying viticulture, I started studying the WSET diploma.
Okay.
So I did as a distant learner. So I just had to travel to London to take the exams.
And what was your research paper on, your MW research paper?
That was on travel shock.
Okay.
So basically, there's a common, you want to say the myth or not a myth. Some it's a bit of a, I think it's quite individual what people they think about it. But when you have a bottle of wine, you put it in your suitcase and you travel across the country, you go somewhere else, and you bring a bottle with you back home after holidays, and you open it the next week and you taste it and say, the wine doesn't smell right. It's not really there as it should. I think there's something wrong with it. It must be the transport. It's got travel shock. And this is something when you read about it, there's a lot of talk about it, but there's been no scientific studies. So I contacted 7 different universities from all over the world. So from the Australian Research Institute to Stellenbosch, Bordeaux, Montpellier, Madrid, Geisenheim, as well as UC Davis. And no professor has heard of any scientific research on it. I said, okay, I'll make a research on how the traveling by air impacts the flavor and taste of wine.
And is it a myth, or is there some scientific data behind that?
Well, I think it depends on the wine. So in order to have enough replica, I only did it on one wine, but I looked into it. So, okay, so they say generally more full-bodied, I understood. Red wines with age are generally a bit more susceptible to it. Others would then say, okay, well, I also think maybe a Pinot Noir would be quite susceptible. But I had access then to 60 bottles of the same wine, which was of 8 years of age, which has never left the winery, and from the same bottling, so one bottle after the other. So they're absolutely the same lot.
Okay.
And then I took it and I put it into like 5 cases of 12. And then I took and then I shipped them by air to Finland and back again. So that was a batch 1. I did that 3 months before doing a tasting. So I took the bottles, shipped them to England and back again. And then I just waited. Then 2 days before conducting a tasting, I took another batch of 12, sent them to to Finland and back again to Spain. And then I took a third batch of 12 bottles of wine, I put it in a truck and then let it drive around for a full day, just in the area. So I did like 300 kilometers, something like that, in a truck. And then I had a 4th batch, which never had left the winery before. And then I did like a triangle testing with a panel consisting of WSET diploma graduates and MWs and MW students exclusively, 12 people. And to a triangle test where I would have pour 3 glasses, and 2 of them would be exactly the same treatment. So 2 of them could have gone to Finland and back again. Another 1 would then be one which never left the winery. And then everybody was obliged to say which one of the 3 wines is the most different. And they had to give one answer. And then you can do some statistical analysis. If most people coincide that the one which has a different treatment is different, then there's statistical evidence that there is a difference. But no results showed by any means there was any difference from any of the treatments.
Well, for all the day drinkers out there that are traveling back from Europe with wines or other places, rest assured that it is not any kind of travel shock that is going to affect your wine. This is good for me personally because this is my personal collection behind me, and this is the result of many, many trips to many, many places. And I'm very glad that your research showed that my babies back here are okay.
Yeah, so at least for that wine, it didn't show a difference. But what I did observe a difference, I also did some chemical analysis.
Mm-hmm.
And there was just one thing which changed, and that this was statistically, there was a statistical evidence, that was the free sulfur dioxide.
Okay.
So the free sulfur dioxide actually did, in average, decrease when traveling by air by around 2 or 3 parts per million.
Wow. Okay.
So most bottling could have probably around somewhere between 25 and 30 free ppm at bottling, and that will then gradually drop over time. But then if you travel once, then it maybe, if it's the case, then it drops by 2 ppm. This is having in mind, what happens here is, these are bottled on the cork. So if you imagine you're putting a bottle on a plane, you're putting it up in the air, there's a vacuum there, basically, so less pressure.
Sure.
So that would actually then suck out slightly a bit of air from the bottle. But when you go down again to the ground, then the pressure is different again, then the air will go back into the bottle. It's minuscule amounts, but enough to actually possibly affect the free sulfur dioxide. Okay. So for one bottle of wine, if it travels once or twice, it shouldn't be an issue. But if you imagine collectors' wines, which have been traveling maybe 20 times, because you buy a Romanée Conti and then another buy in Singapore, another buy in Hong Kong, another buy in London, and so forth, and you have one which is 30 years old, if it's been traveling a lot, possibly that wine could be more oxidized than what it should be, because it's had all the pressure differences.
And these research papers are amazing. I've had a chance to read a number of them, and I find that the dedication that it takes to complete the research paper and to complete the Master of Wine is something that is quite a credit to you and to the colleagues that have completed the program, because it is a level of commitment that, as we said, it's the highest certification in our industry. And were there ever times where you said, I don't know if I'm going to make it through, or am I sure I want to keep doing this, or were you singularly focused through the entire process?
Honestly, I didn't feel any time I wanted to quit the program.
Okay.
I knew I asked for a lot of students and MWs beforehand and during my studies. What you have to do, it just takes a lot of time and dedication and perseverance. Don't give up. Okay. So basically, I knew that, and so my priority was, okay, I have no social life, I have no family life, I have no money whatsoever, because all my money is going into the MW program, and I'm just got to go for it. And I was lucky enough to not repeat too many times. I only failed. So the first year I went through to the second year, and then the second year I passed the tasting in my first go. Okay. So that was like, okay, I'm almost there. I just need the theory, and I knew I wasn't ready for the theory at that point. And that's okay. I'll just study some more and practice my essay techniques. Then I passed the theory, and then the next year the dissertation.
Fantastic. And you are the first or only Danish Master of Wine now in the world?
Yes, I am the only first and only Danish so far.
Fantastic. But you're living in Spain, and you are the owner and founder of the Iberian Wine Academy, where you're teaching the next generation of future MWs and people wanting to go through the WSET program, aren't you?
Absolutely. I am teaching WSET level 2s and 3s here locally. I'm not sure if any of my students so far have the ambition of going to become an MW, hopefully a few of them. But I am also mentoring as well as teaching the Spanish-based and Portuguese-based MW students. So I've been running quite a few tasting sessions with them over the past year and a half.
Do you find the tasting or the theory the most difficult part of the program?
So for me, it was the theory, but statistically, and for most people, it is the tasting. That is the what we call like we call it in Danish, it's like the hole of the needle. It's like
Sure.
it's the way the pace that most people they fail if they fail.
Uh-huh.
So statistically, around of those who sit the tasting exam, around 10% they pass, and for those sitting the theory exam, somewhere between 30 and 35% pass. So, yeah.
It must be great for your WSET students to have somebody that has the passion that you do for wine to be their instructor. You've had that passion since 11 years old, and now you're there communicating to them your feelings about wine, the people, the places, and all the things that make wine such a great thing to do. And they're the recipients of this in these classes. I think you have some very lucky students there for sure.
Well, thank you. That's yeah.
How has your life changed since you got your MW? Has anything changed for you, or have new opportunities presented themselves, or what did getting your MW mean to you?
Well, first of all, I got my life back.
Mhm.
So that was the biggest thing. So more free time. I could travel to see my family. I didn't feel guilty every
Mhm.
time I didn't study, because like when you're studying in such an intense program, like you feel guilty the whole time.
Mhm.
So actually I had weekends, I had time with my family and friends. I had to catch up on that. And of course, as well, my wife.
Mhm.
I could get a hobby. So I started to do some running and hiking, which I do enjoy. More time for cooking, which I also enjoy. So that has been a big benefit. And then of course, the economy wise, it's also helpful because I've been throwing roughly around €1,000 at the program every month.
Mhm.
So suddenly not having to do that, you have another €1,000 every month to say, okay, hey, let's enjoy life a bit more now. So that
As
was
a
very.
hiker, have you ever done any of the Camino de Santiago?
No, I haven't done it. I'd love to do it at some point.
Mhm.
But I'm living on a mountain, basically, so I
Okay.
just have to go for like run for 3 kilometers, and then I'm into like trials of hiking. So I
Oh,
enjoy it quite a
fantastic.
lot.
For people that are looking to get into our industry, or that are in our industry and looking to enhance their skill sets, I think the WSET program is a
Mm.
great way to do that. What kind of characteristics should people have when they're looking to maybe pursue the WSET program? Are there Not all of my day drinkers out there are lucky enough to not have social lives or families. A lot of them are pursuing the training while working simultaneously to be able to pay for the training and the wines that you have to do for the tasting. But is there anything about a prospective student that you look at and say, yes, that's the person that will be successful in this program?
I think it's the students who really wanna learn everything and absorb everything. They just can't get enough of the information, really want to learn all the details and understand why the things are they are, and also having a critical eye on what they're seeing. So basically you read things, and the WCT is extremely good, but it has its flaws as well. It's not perfect. There's a lot of generalization in the book, and they have to do that.
Mhm.
But then there's students who are using their skill of critical thinking to say, okay, well, actually, is it like that? Because I know this and this and this. So when you actually have your own opinion and your own experience, and you start reading and you think, okay, well, I'm not sure, I'm not going to absorb everything blind. I'm actually gonna think about it twice and see if it's logical. Those
Mhm.
are students who generally tend to go further.
Fantastic. Your own personal study techniques. Did you use note cards or computer apps, or how did you prepare for the different bubbles of the testing?
For the theory part, I created basically that most students, what we do is we get old exam sets. So you figure out what are the old exam questions, and then you know the topics which tend to come up, and
Mhm.
these are the major topics in the world of wine, anyways. So I would have that then create different topics. So in viticulture, that could be, okay, water, it could be soil, it could be nutrients, canopy management, and so forth. So I'd have those topics, and then I would create all the information I need to know of those topics in a Word document, and getting examples from around the world from different producers, different parts of the industries, and add that into that Word document. And that was just like summarizing. It was just keynotes. It's not like text, but just a few bullet points where I actually had enough information, that bullet point, to trigger my memory. Okay. So I had that, and then I made those notes. And then the day before the exam, so I, at the hotel in London, I would have all these papers printed, and then I would have Post-its, and I would write all my notes for all the topics on Post-it notes. Okay. And then I would hang them on the wall everywhere. So when you go back to them, and then I'll try to remember all the information before I had to go up for the different exams.
Wow. And were you part of a tasting group as you were getting ready for the tasting portion, or did you do that mostly yourself, or how did you prepare for that?
I was very lucky that I was living in Valladolid, in Ribera del Duero at that time. And as I started studying, I got some really good friends there. One of them, she's an MW today, Almudena Alberca, so the only Spanish female master of wine. And there was another student there, a very good friend, Elisa, who's not an MW yet. And then there was a few, so we created like a tasting group, and we tasted once a week, I'd say roughly, and spent a lot of time on that. And then we invited other MW students to come from Madrid or Barcelona, Zaragoza, where they could, and then they could join. Or we also had people who were very much into wine, WSET, ideally level 3, or even diploma students, also to join, also to cover a bit of the costs for opening cracking a bottle.
Absolutely. Yeah, that is one of the biggest things with tasting, is the amount of money that is spent in purchasing the wines that are typical of a particular area, and sharing those over a group of people does make it a bit easier, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, this is something quite funny which has happened since COVID, basically. So there's many companies now who are specializing in rebottling full bottles into like smaller bottles. So we have them all around. So I've been pairing quite a few of those sets for the MW students here based in Spain, where we just have a bottle of wine, and then we put it into 60 milliliter glass bottles, and then I just ship packs to different students, and then they just have a label where it says, okay, paper 1 wine 1, paper 2 wine 2, and so forth.
Do you think there'll be a trend of the WSET programs going from the typical in-person type of training to more of the remote training as a result of the changes that have happened in the past year or two?
I think there'll be some movement towards that direction, and they all created these sets that you can buy. There's a company in France who rebottle into small bottles, and as a WSET APP, so approved program provider, you can buy those sets and send out to your students. However, I am very much against that way of learning for the WSET. I think I don't want to do it. Many people have asked me to do it, but I don't feel it's a proper way, to introduce, especially when you are more in the beginning levels. I really, really strongly think it's important to have it in person and have the same bottle of wine. You have a tutor there, and you can ask the questions. You're behind the screen. People become lazy, I think. I do, at least myself. I just turn on the camera or go to the toilet or get a cup of coffee or whatever. You're not there. But if you're in the classroom, like, you are forced to be there, and you've got the wine there, and you can ask. And as a teacher, you can also see, when you say something or you describe a wine, you see odd, like, people questioning on the faces, but without saying anything, but you see they're looking a bit odd. And then you ask, okay, so what do you think, Javier? What do you agree here? And then, like, pulling their tongue and trying to get out information. It's so much easier in the classroom. I can't see that working the same way on Zoom. However, I think for the MW program, also for the WSET diploma, where you're more advanced, you've got skilled people, they know how to taste, people are much more engaged and more critical. They also have more knowledge. and experience in terms of wine. I think remote can work to a larger extent.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Other than the Iberian Wine Academy, what other projects are you working on now, and what other things take up your time?
So I work for a Chilean winery called Viña Valdivieso. So I help with exports here in Europe with that. And then I'm also a consultant for a supermarket chain in Denmark, just a wine consultant. So I go and taste wines every 3 months for 2 days. Just so they want to have a wine specialist to help them taste. That's one of the perks you get as well. You get those opportunities coming in. And then I do some mentoring of the MW students based in Spain and in Portugal, and then do some tastings for different Spanish regions. So they want to do region tasting usually in Denmark. That takes place because I'm the only Danish MW, and I'm also know Spanish wines quite well. So region wine like the Ribera del Duero would ask, okay, Jonas, would you want to Copenhagen and make a tasting for the Danish sommeliers on Ribera del Duero? So I do that now and then. Because like freelance, and I'm also helping my brother with with a bit of sales in the family business that we established many years back. But he's now working full time on it. Bodegas Trenza, which is our family project.
Fantastic. Oh, well, that's great that it's all in the family, and you both kind of lived the dream that you set way back when. It started with that for sure. I at the restaurant on Sunday, I'm starting a 3-part wine series on Spanish wines. And we will have a class of between 16 and 20 people that come for 2 or 3 hours each time to go over different parts of Spanish wine. And like you, I have a passion for Spanish wines. I think that they're sometimes underappreciated in the entire scope of wines. And I'm looking forward to sharing my passion of Spanish wines with my students this weekend and over the next 2 months, because I think when more people get exposed to them, they'll see the wonderful opportunities and the different varieties that are out there to taste and to try and hopefully pair with food and enjoy.
Fantastic. Yeah. And Spanish wines, they offer great value. I really think it's you have $20 and you got to buy a bottle of wine. You can get something quite nice from Spain, and it's a bit more challenging if you go to Italy or France, in my view.
Absolutely. My wife and I were going to take a trip to Spain, but it got derailed for obvious reasons in 2020. But we have rescheduled the trip for June of 2022, and we will be there for almost 2 weeks, touring different wine regions and going through the Rioja wine trail and visiting wineries almost exclusively. And we're really looking forward to that.
Wow, amazing. You must go to Galicia.
Yes,
Galicia.
One of my favorite regions.
Oh, good. It's beautiful, great wines, relatively inexpensive wine for the quality, and the food is spectacular.
Jonas, my lifelong dream is to sit on a dock with a bottle of Albarino and whatever the fish of the day that comes in that day, just have a pan in one hand to cook the fish and a bottle of Albarino in the other. I think that's the perfect day. And I couldn't see any other place to do that but in Galicia. That's absolutely one of my favorite things for sure.
Good for you. I'm happy. That's great. That's great.
Well, Jonas, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today and share your insights with all the day drinkers out there about your process, your personal journey to becoming a master of wine. I wish you all the best in the world with your future projects, and particularly with the Iberian Wine Academy. I can tell that your passion and enthusiasm for wine your students are very fortunate to have someone like you to help them through the process. I wish you well in your family project and all of your other endeavors. And I hope next time I'm in Spain, I have an opportunity to catch up with you and see how things are going.
Yeah, give me a shout. Send me a message when you come to Spain.
I will do so. Have a wonderful weekend, and I will talk to you soon.
Thank you. You too. Have a lovely one, and thank you for a lovely interview. Okay, bye.
Jonas, thank you so much for sharing your unique journey on how you became a master of wine, and I wish you the best in your Iberian Wine Academy and all of your future pursuits. If you liked this episode, don't hesitate to give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to Day Drinking with Kevin. And if you have ideas for future episodes, please email me at daydrinkingwithkevin@gmail.com. Until next time, this is Kevin saying, salute.